Philadelphia fans. We're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Coming to you live from the Gallery Book and Bar and Games. Mark Farzetta, Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn with you here because this football season, the party is right here at Ocean Casino Resort, especially for all your game day needs. Your game day headquarters, Ocean Casino Resort and the Gallery. The Book and Games place right here is where you need to party in AC. And we're going to talk all things Eagles and Cardinals as you're undefeated. Philadelphia Eagles at 4-0 take on the 2-2 Arizona Cardinals. Fresh off a flight from Arizona, doing a little reconnaissance mission and maybe some partying. Seth Joyner, of course, Eagles Hall of Famer and veteran Eagles reporter Derek Gunn. Fellas, after this week, listening to this team speak, nothing grabbed my attention more for a 4-0 team than the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback and the reigning offensive player of the month, Jalen Hurts, talking about how this team still needs to improve and how we can't overlook, or rather the Eagles can't overlook, a team like the Arizona Cardinals coming into this game. They're coming off a tough loss at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs, but still at this point, Seth, confidence is at an all-time high for this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Well, listen, they should be confident, but I like Jalen's position, and I like the rest of the team's position because, honestly, they have not played a complete game as of yet, okay? They've outscored everybody in the NFL in the second quarter. That's about it. They scored one first-quarter touchdown in the last 4 games. And the defense has played so well in the second half that they haven't had to score a bunch of points. But, you know, this game against the Arizona Cardinals is a different type of game because, you know, you got a different type of animal in Kyler Murray. And, I mean, he pulled a rabbit out of his hat to get, you know, the Arizona Cardinals a win against the Raiders. The Raiders thought they had their game locked with a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter. Boom, boom. He's running all over the place like crazy. And next thing you know, they come back and they win the game. So they should still be pushing. I mean, and pushing hard as they can, you know, to play a complete game on both sides of the ball because, you know, down the stretch, this is what it's going to take.
And Gunnar, to further that point, talking about trying to play a complete game, you go back to one of his first career starts, Jalen Hurts. It was against this Cardinals team. It was in Arizona. And wouldn't you know it, they didn't score a point in the first quarter, yet they come out in that second quarter of that game and scored 20 points, which has certainly been the MO of this Eagles team this year. So looking at this team right now, what do they need to do to play that complete game, and what are the odds we see that from the Eagles today?
Well, let's hope they get off to a much faster start than they did just a week ago. And let's hope that they remember there's 60 minutes of football to be played offensively and not just 30. Seth is right. The defense is held it down. They've been locked down in the second half to make things a lot easier for this Philadelphia Eagles team. But as explosive as they've been in that second quarter, I'm going to see that explosion occur in the third or fourth quarter as well and just put teams out of the misery. Now, you're playing a mediocre Arizona Cardinals team, but you're playing them in their backyard. And as we've seen each and every week in the National Football League, always expect the unexpected. It happened earlier today with the Giants against Green Bay. Don't take this Arizona Cardinal team lightly, and I know this Philadelphia Eagles team won't, because as the players have told me, we haven't proven anything yet. We're 4-0, but we've got a long way to go to get to where we want to be and to establish ourselves as a type of football team we want to be at the end of the season, more importantly than the beginning of the season.
It really is wild when you look at just the numbers. I mean, the record speaks for itself, 4-0, but when you do break it down a little bit further when it comes to the numbers, we're looking at an Eagles defense right now that is ranked third, going into week 4, ranked third in yards per game. They're ranked number 1 in turnover differential. They're ranked number 1 in sacks. This is coming into this week. I never thought I would see this in the Jonathan Gannon defense. They are, wait for it, actually being aggressive, more aggressive than I have seen. How much of that, Seth, is Jonathan Gannon? How much of that maybe is the players and the personnel? And how much of that might be Vic Fangio's input on what this defense does?
I believe it's a combination of all of those things, I think, because when you go back and you look at this defense last year, we didn't see the type of creativity where you get free runners running at the quarterback. You know, they're doing a lot of line stunts that they didn't do, you know, last year, and they didn't do through the first game. You know, to be honest with you, it wasn't until game 2 that you actually seen them ramp things up a little more, and you saw a little more creativity. You look at a guy like T.J. Edwards; they're sending him a lot. Last year, he had this tag hung on him that he couldn't blitz. So Alex Singleton was the guy that was always blitzing, which was a dead giveaway. But now, you know, you look up T.J.'s got a sack, he's got a bunch of pressures, and I just think that, you know, they need to remain. They need to remain aggressive, in my opinion. I've been looking. I'm trying to find their blitz percentage, you know, in comparison to the rest of the NFL, because I think last year they were like 14%, and that was like in the lower third or the lower half of blitzing in the NFL. I think it's a direct reflection when, you know, you pressure a quarterback. It's a direct reflection on turnovers. It's a direct reflection on sacks. It's a direct reflection on, you know, the amount of yards that teams can have against you. And there are things that you can do in the run game as well to kind of get that under control. It's going to be interesting today to watch and see what Jonathan Gannon's game plan is against a guy like Kyler Murray. Because if this defense can be really, really undisciplined sometime at the defensive end position. On plays away, the defensive ends close too fast. It's almost like, you know, you're responsible for cutback and containment. That I don't understand. So when you're playing a guy like this and he struggled from the pocket, you know that they're going to roll him out. They're going to do some bootlegs. I mean, that defensive end needs to stay home and keep him in the pocket. That's where you want him to play from. You want him to play from the pocket rather than outside, because he's having some troubles seeing over those 6'5", 6'6", you know, offensive linemen in front of him.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Jonathan Gannon, when he was addressing the media earlier in the week, he was asked about his blitz percentage. And the question was in relevance to, well, you're up 6% from what you were last year. And Jonathan Gannon, rather than just taking the victory, taking the W, being like, yes, I am being more aggressive, decided to shoot that down. No, that can't be the case. We're not blitzing at a higher percentage than we were last year, at least not 6% higher. Gunnar, I'm thinking it's working. Who cares what the percentage is at this point? It's working for you. If you are blitzing more, which I think we can all, just by the eye test, tell that the Eagles are under this version of Jonathan Gannon's defense, then just take the compliment.
Well, it's good to see that Jonathan Gannon can have a sense of humor, considering the darts that have been thrown his way since last season and after the first game of the season against Detroit. He knows what the numbers are, and he knows each and every situation. Now that he has a more comfort zone with his defensive personnel, I expect those numbers to be consistently up across the board. Now, when you blitz a guy like a Kyler Murray, discipline is the optimum word for this game, because when you think you have him, you don't. Like Seth said, the best way to defend him is to try to keep him in the pocket. But we've seen too many times teams have tried to keep him in the pocket. All of a sudden, he slips through a gap somewhere. I think you're going to have to put a spy on him. Who that spy is, I don't know who it may be, but you got to have somebody watching him. Now, that may take away from your coverage in certain situations, but I'd rather take my chances with my guys on the back end who have played phenomenal the last 3 games of one-on-one coverage with this guy than having 5 guys drive back and giving him 15, 20 yards of space to run in up front.
How would you defend against Kyler Murray today? When it comes to guys like T.J. Edwards potentially being a spy, maybe Hassan Reddick, who's been doing a phenomenal job on the edge, maybe you use his speed as a QB spy. How would you defend against Kyler Murray today?
Well, I'm not a big fan of the spy, because no matter who you put on him, if you're not in the right position at all times, you can lose the spy. You know, I played that spy position before, and a defensive lineman gets in front of you or blocks you, and the quarterback's out. I think your defensive ends have to be a lot more disciplined. I mean, you got to get up the field, okay, 3 yards, no more than 3 to 3.5 yards up the field, and stop. Okay, you don't want to run around behind him and have the offensive lineman run you by, okay, which opens up a huge gap between the tackle and the tackle and the guard. Okay, just be disciplined. Now, the real key is how, you know, Fletcher and Javon Hargrave and Jordan Davis, you know, if they can push the pocket and the defensive ends on the outside can just be disciplined and just not go hog wild, you know, just drooling for sacks, realizing that if you get pushed inside, those guys, the quarterback he's going to have to flow to you, okay? He's either going to get sacked in the pocket, or he's going to flow to you. But sometimes, we coaches like get on you, and they love for you to they're like, go 100 miles an hour, fly to the ball. And there's a time and place for everything. There's a time and a place where, as a defense, you better be like crazed dogs, just running at, what you got to get to. But there's also times, where you got to go 50, 60, sometimes 70%, and you got to just throttle it down so that you can make sure you keep a guy like Kyler in the pocket. Listen, he's more dangerous outside of the pocket than he is in the pocket.
I'm glad you brought that up, because what's the first and foremost mindset of an edge rusher? Get home, as you just said. Now you're going to try to tell a guy to go X amount of feet and then pump the brakes? I don't know of any defensive ends that can do that consistently in today's football game.
I tell you what, that's the thing that stopped us, back in the day with Randall. That's what stopped us from winning in the playoffs. Because what teams did was they let him run all over the place during the regular season. You get to the playoffs and you get, these crafty defensive coordinators, and they would just say, okay, we're just going to make you play from the pocket, and we're just going to try to push the pocket. Listen, I get it. You pay these guys a lot of money, these defensive ends. They want to get to the quarterback. They want sacks. Okay, but if the number one thing is winning games, okay, then you do whatever's necessary to win the football game. And sometimes you got to lock that craziness in your mind. I can remember we used to play every time we played against Barry Sanders. The defensive coordinator would be like, listen, if they run away from you, don't even pursue. Just stay home. First play of the game, they toss the ball, weak away from me, and by habit, I'm trying to get a pursuit angle. And as I'm running out of my left eye here, I see he's coming back. I'm like, oh, damn, here we go. So, yeah, but all it took for that to happen was one time, So when you understand that that's important and it's a critical element to you being able to win the game, then you put your desires and what you want to do personally on the back burner, and you do what's necessary in order for the team to get to 5-0.
To bring up this name again, we've been talking about getting, over the edge, getting to the quarterback, getting home, and no one has been doing that really at a better clip over the last couple of weeks than a guy like Hassan Reddick. Brandon Graham has certainly had his time in the backfield getting things done, but the reigning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, Hassan Reddick, is a guy we talked about 2 weeks ago as a guy we needed to see more from. We had certainly seen a lot from Jalen Hurts. We had seen a lot from Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and those guys. Who do we need to see more? We saw more from A.J. Brown on the offensive side of things. But now we're looking at a guy like Hassan Reddick that is playing at his full potential. The reason the Eagles and Howie Roseman decided to bring him in here to rush the quarterback and force turnovers. Well, here we are, gentlemen. Defensive Player of the Week, and also a guy that is forcing fumbles, causing sacks, recovering fumbles. Is he going to be the guy that you have to look at defensively this time around against a guy like Kyler Murray as a guy that almost has to be an MVP of the defense in this game? Or will it come down more to the defensive tackles getting home?
I don't think you can look at it as a single MVP. I think it has to be a collective effort. We've spent the first, 14 minutes of this show, as Seth talked about, playing a more disciplined style of defense. Not just one guy, but a collection of guys, and that includes guys in the back end, because there are going to be times when Kyler floats outside of that pocket. And what is the natural progression of a defensive back? Keep one eye on the guy you're covering. Watch that guy floating outside of the pocket because he's dangerous. Once you take your off that guy you're covering, that's when you get into trouble because he's going to wiggle free somewhere. It's a difficult game to play. You don't have a whole lot of Kyler Murrays in this league. You have Lamar Jackson. You have Kyler Murray. You have a few. You have Jalen Hurts. But you don't have a whole collection of these guys. So you got to change your mindset in a lot of ways in terms of how you're going to defend them. Now, offensively, Arizona doesn't have a lot of potent weapons. I think A.J. Green is still down for this game. We don't know Rondale Moore's situation yet in terms of this game. You got Marquise Hollywood Brown. He can flat out go. The running game has been non-existent. The offensive line has had problems. So who do you hold in on? That guy on the center.
There you go. So you go for the defensive back position. You also go to the defensive tackles. You go also with a guy like Hassan Reddick coming off the edge. I think the word of the day is going to be discipline when it comes to this defense.
Oh, listen, there's no doubt about it. I watch football now, and I'm always astounded. I tweeted last week about the where is the good structural integrity in defensive football nowadays. You just don't see it. You see guys running free all over the place, whether it's someone blew a coverage in zone, or whether, you got two guys on one guy and, they let a guy go free, and he's supposed to be covering, somebody's supposed to be covering that guy. Just general, structure about how a defense is supposed to operate. If I got contained, I got contained. I don't care if they come at me or whether they go away. If I got the B gap, then guess what? I got to hold the B gap. Because if I do my job and everybody holds their gap across the board, or if everybody's rushing the way that they're supposed to instead of rushing willy-nilly, and just going off doing their own thing, then we can have a solid defense. But where teams get themselves in trouble is they allow certain things to happen. I always say, what you watch and what you see on TV is either being coached or it's being allowed, one or the other, okay? Because if I'm a defensive coach, my outside linebackers and my defensive ends can't stand up wrong foot up. Because while they might get a better push off a pass rush, when you bring motion and they run at them, they always got to step in the bucket to be able to recover. And you're a contained player. So, I don't understand how coaches let their players get away with operating so inefficiently. But that's what we see. And to your point, yes, discipline is going to be the word of the day.
I think one of the biggest reasons why, Seth, because the game has changed so much. It used to be more even keel. Defenses get away with a lot more. The league has made this such an offensive game, it's like it's almost hands-off for defenses in a lot of ways. You see more 5 wide receiver sets than you've ever seen before. You see more athletic tight ends. They have pushed this passing game to the point you see more nickel defenses than you've ever seen before. The structure of the game has changed so much. The days of when you played the game and could play it more physical, those days are over. Well, and I agree.
I'm not even talking about physicality. I'm just talking about being technically and fundamentally sound. Where's the technique? I get it. The offenses are at an advantage because of the way that offenses are structured and the rules in the game today. Okay, but my question is, where is the technique and the fundamental integrity that gives your players an opportunity to win? The way that they play, you don't see DBs backpedaling and flipping their hips and all that kind of stuff anymore. They're all standing up and they're always out of position. So if you're a coach, and you're supposed to be teaching these young guys this, your team can be so much better if they're fundamentally sound and they're fundamentally and technically disciplined. That's what I'm talking about.
And they don't teach DBs anymore how to turn around and look for the ball anymore. I don't understand that aspect of the game, both at the college level and the pro level. That's why you have so many pass interference calls in today's game. They're always in the face of a receiver. Back in the day, they would tell you all you have to do is look at a receiver's eyes. You can tell if the ball's coming to him. And then you turn around and try to make a play on the ball. Not these guys. They're running face first and the other guys' helmets and stuff like this.
It's fear.
It's fear. And that's why the PI has become such an integral part of the offensive game. Look at how many times quarterbacks will go deep on like 3rd and short situations, 4th and short situations, because more than 50% of the time they're going to get that PI called in their favor.
They can get that drawn. They can draw that flag every single time. Absolutely. High percentage, as you said. Now, when it comes to drawing that or maybe just making plays for yourself, somebody has been doing that at a very impressive clip so far this season, and that guy's name is Jalen Hurts. I know a lot of people have come into this week talking about comparing the two quarterbacks. One just got a huge contract at $230 million. Another one might be due a similar contract in the not-too-distant future, maybe during this year, maybe right at the end of this year. Are the quarterback comparisons between Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, gentlemen, are they fair going into this game? Are they very similar quarterbacks, just similar quarterbacks, or do they have very different styles? Obviously, you can look at the things right now as mobile quarterbacks, maybe running quarterbacks, being able to extend the play. Jalen Hurts has shown me at least a lot this year, and I think the vast majority of the Eagles fan base, that he can throw that ball deep down the field, and he can hit that slant route crisply, as he wasn't able to maybe a year ago. Certainly this year, he seems like a guy that is ready for that big contract and will be ready to sign when the Eagles do present it to him. Is the comparison between these two quarterbacks fair at this point, Gunnar?
No.
No,
absolutely not. At this stage, Jalen Hurts is a much better passer than Kyler Murray. The only thing Kyler Murray has on Jalen Hurts is speed. That's about it. But in terms of discipline, running an offense, being able to survey a situation, get himself out of a jam, I think Jalen Hurts has surpassed Kyler Murray in those aspects. You fear Kyler Murray more so for his running ability than you do his passing ability. Now, granted, he does not have DeAndre Hopkins, doesn't have A.J. Green. Rondale Moore has been injured, so maybe that's a big difference in terms of what he's trying to do in terms of creating big plays and moving the chains down the field. But when you look at Jalen Hurts under center now compared to just a year ago, almost a completely different quarterback. Look at his percentage. He's number 6 in the league in passing already, 4 games. He's number 8 in the league in completion percentage. He has made a complete transformation in terms of what he wants to be, which is a legitimate National Football League quarterback.
All right. Seth, where do you weigh in? Murray versus Hurts?
Well, listen, it's a big deal that Kyler Murray doesn't have his weapons because, without DeAndre Hopkins, who is a coverage dictator, it causes a lot of problems for what they want to do. And when you don't have your full complement, listen, Jalen Hurts got a full complement of weapons in front of him, so it's a lot easier for him. Right now, it's hard for Kyler Murray because all he has is Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz. So, as a defensive coordinator, it's a lot easier for me to take 2 guys away than when you have a full complement of players. And then at the other end of the spectrum, the other thing is, I will continue to talk about, the struggles that Kyler has from inside the pocket because he just cannot see over the offensive line. I mean, I think that what they need to do with him is a lot of what you saw with Russell Wilson when he was playing well in Seattle. Not the current Russell Wilson, the old Russell Wilson. But I digress. Every time you saw him run play action pass, he set up 9 to 10 yards deep. It wasn't just because he had maneuverability and room around him, but it's so he could see down the field. Because like Kyler, he's a shorter quarterback. So you don't want to line him up before, snap the ball, take 2 steps back as the line is being pushed. You can't see. So you got to see. You got to create windows. With Jalen, it's different because Jalen's got enough height to stand in. You can go play action. You can get him deep. There's a whole lot of different things, that can happen, for Jalen that is harder for Kyler to do. But I'm telling you right now, DeAndre Hopkins makes a huge difference in that offense, a huge difference because it predetermines, pre-snap what kind of coverage you're going to get, how he's going to be played. The minute that he understands he's got single coverage over there, that ball's going over there. And think about this, DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald last year averaged almost 15 targets a game. That tells you how big of a piece that is.
Wow. Not only that, but body language goes a long way. You look at when things go bad for Jalen Hurts, he's ready to go his next series. You look at Kyler Murray, you see Kyler Murray moping on the sideline. What kind of message is that sending to his teammates when you got to go back out there in the field? We've noticed that at Kyler Murray last year after they lost that first game of the season. From there in, Arizona bottomed out. You look at Kyler's body language. You look at him as a leader. Off-season, he takes everything of the Arizona Cardinals off his social media until he gets his contract. All of a sudden, he comes back again. Okay? We understand he doesn't have the weapons, but if you're going to lead, you have to be able to lead through the bad times as well as the good times. Body language goes a long way in terms of how your teammates follow you.
Body language and leadership, of course. Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn, Mark Farzetta with you here with the JAKIB Media Eagles pregame show from Ocean Casino Resort. When we come back, we're going to talk to our man on the scene in the desert, John McMullen, who's out there. A lot of injury news that we want to get the latest on from John coming up in just a few, and that's when we return here on the pregame show on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel live from Ocean Casino Resort.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Do you stream on a Roku? Buy